Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurs on Monocle Radio, the show all about inspiring people, innovative companies and fresh ideas in global business. On today's programme, we'll meet the co-founder of a unisex accessories brand aiming to create beautiful pieces to take from the boardroom to the mountains and anywhere in between.
One of the most wonderful things about a physical product company is you will be out in the world and you will see people you do not know using your product, and that has made their lives better.
Then we'll meet the founder of a label making bags from 100% recycled materials that are functional, lightweight, and versatile.
We want to become the go-to brand when it comes to a fashionable person that needs a bag during her everyday life to go to the gym and to travel and everything.
This is The Entrepreneurs, with me, Tom Edwards. You're listening to The Entrepreneurs. Abel Samet is the co-founder of Troubadour, a B Corp brand dedicated to creating high-quality, sustainable bags designed for commuters and long-haul travellers alike. The company was started more than a decade ago after Abel and his then flatmate Samuel Bale bonded over their mutual love of endurance sports, a clean aesthetic, and an obsessive attention to detail. In 2013, they launched the brand, creating versatile, high-quality bags that blend business refinement with rugged durability. Abel stopped by Midori House to talk about Troubadour's commitment to product development, the importance of customer feedback, and the company's resilience through COVID. He began by telling me how a business focused on bags used for commuting and travel made it through the challenges posed by the pandemic.
We ran a bag business during COVID. We are not selling Peloton bikes, and we are not selling, loungewear. People use our products to commute and to travel, and for a period of time, there was very little commuting and traveling going on in the world. And that was really tough. Mm. And so it's definitely not all sunshine and roses. I think coming back to who are we? Why are we doing this? It was a real North Star for us during some of those really tough moments. And the reality was we were a pretty small team. And pre-COVID, it's tough to get time with the best designers, the best product people in the world. And all of a sudden, all these brands were laying off their people, were not doing design development work. So we were fortunate. We had just raised a little bit of money at the end of 2019, and we really doubled down into product development and worked super hard, heads down through 2020, early 2021. And so the products we were coming out with in 2021 and 2022 were the fruits of, honestly, some of our toughest days. It's still not totally clear ultimately where the outcome's going to be. I think it's certainly more positive now than it was 3-4 years ago, and we're really moving in a nice direction from a product perspective and a brand perspective. But there are certainly doubts along the way. But I think it's enjoying the journey, it's enjoying the moments. It comes back to like the race without a finish line and working super hard. And why do we believe we are still in a position to be putting out the best product in the world and to keep disrupting ourselves and making it better and better and better? And it's a super motivating way to go through life.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I wonder, is that sometimes then frustrating? Obviously, what's nice about making great quality physical products is you get to stand at the end of a production line and look at something and refine it, but enjoy it. But there is that abstraction about the timing and the direction of travel. Is that ever frustrating? Or I sense from what you say that actually you kind of relish the uncertainty, right?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I love the journey we're on. I love seeing how far our product has come. I think one of the most wonderful things about a physical product company is you will be out in the world and you will see people you do not know using your product, and that has made their lives better, and they don't know who you are, and that is totally fine.
What do you do when that happens? Do you have to go over and say, "Excuse me, how are you finding it?"
I'm actually pretty shy. I don't. Yeah, if I'm with my wife, she will be much more inclined to go say something.
Good feedback with those chats, though. Even if
amazingly positive.
Yeah,
amazingly positive. And it's I think someone who has bought a Troubadour bag has, in almost every case, done so intentionally on the back of research. I think potentially one day we will be a brand that is so ubiquitous in one way or another. But today, we are here because publication X or Y or Z called us the best bag or the best laptop backpack or whatnot. And that's often a channel people found us. A friend who loves the brand is the reason people found us. So people generally have a connection and generally really saying, incredibly nice things or incredibly helpful feedback, and sometimes both. And it's great.
Let's talk a bit, if we zoom out and look at the whole space, because it's funny, if you look at super premium luggage space or high luxury, crazy price tags and growing. And I guess that provides an opportunity, doesn't it, for young upstart brands like yourself to sort of move into that space. How do you gauge that overall spectrum? Because obviously we're not talking about the super premium tens of thousands of pounds, but even now, premium mid-range luggage seems to just be getting more and more expensive. We know about the impact on supply chains and all the rest of it. How do you guys place yourselves in that spectrum of bags? Again, as you said, it's more about functionality, mostly with, for the commute, for the travel. But how do you make sense of that spectrum? Is it an opportunity to not be in that super premium space, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we define ourselves at any one given price point and lock ourselves into that. We've done all leather product that sits at a more luxury price point. It's not at the super expensive luxury price points, but we have the all leather, and then our core where we do most of our business is in the sort of 200 to 250 pounds, dollars type of range. And that does seem like quite a good sweet spot for us because we can deliver what really is just fantastic product that is better designed, that is better made, that will last longer, that is more sustainable, and deliver that for customers in a way that really delights. And that still doesn't work for everyone, but it's a price point that works for a lot of people. And a lot of people who do their research and seek out best products in our space end up coming to us. And in terms of like being at the early part of our distance journey here, those are the people we want finding us. Those are the people who their friends come to them and say, "This person has style. I need a new backpack. Who should I look at?"
And I like this idea about that kind of intentionality. I think this changed a lot, certainly 2020 and 21. People began to ask different questions, again, about their own health and well-being, but everyone was interested a little bit in sort of provenance of materials and the rest of it, but it changed so quickly. In a good way for you guys, right? Because you're B Corp now, I think. Is that correct? And there is this deep interest in doing things in a genuinely sustainable way. And that sustainability, both in terms of sourcing the right materials, but in making something that lasts and that in that way is sustainable because it doesn't break and you don't have to buy a new one every 5 minutes. But again, was that something that from the outset you guys knew was going to be a foundational part of the business?
Yes, I'd say sustainability has always been hugely important to us on some sense because it just seems logical for a whole bunch of reasons. And we definitely have customers who come to us and really appreciate and value the things we're doing on a sustainability front, whether it's fully circular product made from recycled materials that's fully recyclable without downgrading, which we're the first bag brand to ever go to production with that on bags. And we had a number of other factories and brands tell us that wasn't possible before we figured out how to do it. At the same time, sustainability is a tricky one. So we ask our customers a survey every year and we say, what's most important to you? Comfort, function, aesthetic, sustainability, price. 3 years in a row, sustainability has been the bottom, which is at first I found so frustrating, as though people didn't care. And I flipped that a little bit recently. And I said, these people that are buying our bags that tell us they don't care about sustainability, if they didn't buy from us, they would probably buy from a brand that was actually not sustainable. And so the more that you can convert people that say they don't care about sustainability because the product is actually better, because they're buying because it's more comfortable, lightweight, looks better, it's a better product. And it just happens to be sustainable. We think a lot about sustainability and how do we do that? How do we deliver that? How do we deliver that in the product, in the packaging, in the way we go about all of our business practices? I think that's one of the ways we hope to sort of move the needle and shift this. And I now view it as a positive that we have a lot of people that tell us they don't care about sustainability, but they buy Troubadour bags that are much more sustainable.
Well, yeah, exactly. Imagine what they'll do once they get the full story. Can I ask, I don't want to give away all your special market research, but is there anything that's consistently number one on the list then? Is it a value proposition? Is it about comfort or?
So generally aesthetics or aesthetic related, refined aesthetic or sort of something around that range. I think
that's really interesting.
Where I don't think we're giving away a trade secret is I think a lot of people who are selecting that or putting that very highly ranked, it means more than that. It means something different to them, whether it's about the brand, whether it's about how they feel about themselves wearing a Troubadour backpack versus their 89-pound backpack from university. That it's while it's listed as a product feature, there's really something deeper there, I think, in the response.
Are we talking about it's an emotional connection, correct? I mean, and whether that's with the brand in this abstract way, you guys somewhere, in the R&D lab working on things, or just that moment, the feeling, I feel good when I wear it. I mean, that's pretty important. It's pretty important.
For sure. I mean, I think we originally designed the question to try to better understand what features and benefits were most important. Would a customer prefer a slightly more comfortable bag versus a slightly lighter weight bag? And they're definitely play on one another. Or do you want more function in it with more pockets, even if the additional zippers add some weight? And that was the original way we designed the question. I think we got a lot more back in the answers than we were originally expecting just from that question.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I always find that intriguing, the weight and emphasis that you can put on those, that correspondence. What about your selling models? Again, tell our audience how, I mean, I guess they can go and find out themselves, but what's the main way that you get your bags to your discerning customers? How does that work? And again, is that set fair? Is brick and mortar retail something of greater interest? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, I mean, certainly evolved. Pre-COVID, we were about 50-50 between wholesale and direct. During COVID, we saw certainly a bigger pullback in wholesale generally across the board, and then certainly wholesale in our space, whereas direct has really kept growing. We opened our first physical store in Soho. I walked here from Beak Street, our 65 Beak Street store. We opened that in 2021, height of COVID. Retail was never coming back. The landlord, I don't know if I can discuss the terms, but basically it was like, no one's here. The place is run down. We really want you to come and,
There's an opportunity there.
Right. And Soho's come, it's been amazing to see the development of Soho in the last 3 years. And so, that's a nice, just having the store with our space where people come in and can touch and feel and engage with our staff. And it's super valuable to have that physical retail space. Wholesale is certainly, an important part of the model. And there's a big variety and quality of wholesale partner. But I think if you find the right ones, it can be really powerful. Huge share of customers still shop with us online. And that can be we want to make sure there aren't barriers to customers who want to shop with us online, wherever they are in the world. And we try to make that possible. So, yeah, I guess now it's sort of called multi-channel. We started when the direct-to-consumer cut your prices in half and, sell direct. People thought we were crazy to be, this brand that was saying, no, we think wholesale is still important. But it's nice to see where things are evolving at this point.
Let's just throw things forward then. What are you most excited about? I mean, I think people will understand your approach. It's about how can one improve the unimprovable, et cetera, et cetera. That's always interesting to see. But what are you most excited about? I mean, have you got other things up your sleeve? Is it product categories? Is it materials? Is it refining processes? I wonder what you're most, of all the things you're clearly very excited about, lots of different things, but what's top of the list?
We're really excited about materials, for sure, whether it's the materials themselves, the new ways we can do construction and seams. And if you went through life as an individual and 10 years later, you didn't feel like you'd learned much or you'd changed your views much from 10 years before, and you sort of wonder what you've been doing the last 10 years. And you think, like, as an economy, as a society, sometimes there's a nostalgia for the way something was made or done 100 years ago, 200 years ago. That's fine if that's what gets someone excited. I think what gets us out of bed in the morning and really excited is much more about how much is possible now that just wasn't possible even a few years ago. The things that we can do to make better product using advanced manufacturing techniques, better designs basically, is amazing. Like, we've never lived at a time like this.
Well, I was going to ask, because often when we talk to any people who are doing any sort of creative work on this program and across the whole sort of Monocle firmament, there's always this conversation about technology and, it's too clinical, and does it threaten creators or the creative processes, because increasingly it can be able to do this. But are you, I don't want to misinterpret what you're saying, but are you one of those advocates for tech as a liberator of creative people, as an enabler of, because processes are better, they're quicker, the costs come down? Is it all positive? Do you worry about somebody saying, I can just get, in 5 years, an AI designer to say, make me a Troubadour bag, but save me 40%, and an AI machine will be able to do it? Where are you on that sort of debate?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably like anything, it's not all good, it's not all bad. I think that are there factories in the world today that really shouldn't exist? Like, for sure. Is the solution to only go back to the way factories did things 50 years ago? That sort of nostalgia for the past, I think, is fine, but there are things that are amazing and positive, that are innovative and creative and artisanal, and it just seems like too caricatured, too simplified to sit there and say, the new is like this, the old is like that. And it's like, okay, well, you're smart people. Like, is there nothing that's from the last 10, 20, 50 years that you think would make your product better, your process better? And it's not to judge anyone. It's like it's to go about doing what you do and the way you do it and the way that you think leads to the best results. I think the way we really try to set super ambitious targets for ourselves. And, I think try to have those targets be so ambitious that if we're not trying to find new and better materials, new and better design techniques, you take our Orbis collection, fully circular. So it's typically within the recycling process, the materials get downgraded. So they say, oh, this is from recycled materials. Usually they just mean the fabric was from recycled bottles, but nothing else from the bag's recycled. And if they say it's recyclable, which they almost never do, it's downgraded again. So maybe it's the seat cushion for a car, and it's downgraded in that process. We said what would need to happen to be able to recycle a bag in a way that it can then become a new bag again. And so it requires monomaterial. Our conclusion was we needed monomaterial to produce this fully recyclable bag. And it meant we needed to come up with new ways to design zippers, to design lining, to design threads, different things that were going to be totally out of this one PET molecule so that you can fully recycle that bag down into PET pellets again that can then be created into a new fully recyclable bag. If we wanted to constrain ourselves and say, we don't want anything new, there would just be no way to create that fully circular. And many brands couldn't get past some of these things because they just said, oh, there's no zippers that are, it's like, well, how do you go and try and solve that problem?
Well, and why did you, just because I'm aware that we're sort of going on and on and on here, but surely, at what point does the pragmatist listen to the naysayers? Or if it's the 10th zipper factory and they say, well, no one's ever done this, where do you get the resolve to say, on to the next? And you keep doing it. Is that, I suppose we come full circle.
Now we come full circle to how stubborn I am.
Yeah, is it that good stubbornness and that just that curiosity, a kind of an impatience with imperfect fixes? It must be something more than that, no?
Yeah, I think it's continuing to ask questions, and you get no 10 times, but still being willing to ask the 11th. And you're not asking the same person 10 times, but you're going to try to figure out other factories, other people, other designers. Are there can we figure out solutions to some of these questions we have? But it's a balance for sure. At some point, you need a ship. It's not about being a garage band and having, my mom listen in once in a while and say, oh, you guys are pretty good music. It's like, no, we got to actually get out in the world and, it's like being in the arena. Bear criticism for things that, we don't do well enough. Put yourself out there. It's scary, but it's kind of what it's all about.
That was Abel Samet, the co-founder of Troubadour, and you can learn more by heading to troubadourgoods.com. You're listening to The Entrepreneurs. Lili Radu is the co-founder of V Collective, a sustainable bag label catering to the practical and aesthetic needs of modern consumers, which she started with her husband, Patrick Lerver, in 2017. Initially involved in leather goods, Lili and Patrick pivoted to creating lightweight, versatile totes based on their customers' feedback. I caught up with Lili to talk about the evolution of the brand, V Collective's commitment to sustainability, and its impressive international growth. Lili began by telling me about the start of the journey.
So the idea was, it's our second company in the accessory segment. So the first one was leather contemporary goods. And we always were a lot on the sales floor, and we listened to customers, and we constantly get the feedback that everybody was looking for a lightweight tote, right? Like that you can take shopping, you can take traveling, you have like your computer inside, you can take to the gym and everything. And everybody was like, we really don't find anything on the market. So my husband and me, we were already in bags. We're looking at each other. That was in LA when we sold to Bloomingdale's, our first line. And we were like, why don't we do a second brand? And that was the beginning of V Collective, really with the idea that the modern woman/person also, because obviously 90% of our customers are women, but obviously we also have men, need a bag that sits with them during the whole day, right? Where they can put their yoga mat inside or their gym clothes and then their laptop. Mothers can have it as a diaper bag, like a bag that fits all purposes, still is positioned super fashion. So we have a distributor tomorrow and we just sell to the best stores worldwide, but obviously with an entry price point next to Balenciaga or Celine, but a tote that is $300, right? That everybody really needs because it's a bag that actually carries your life and your stuff. That was the idea.
Yeah, I love the idea of bag for carrying your life around. And it's fair to say, I guess, that there's some ethical and purpose-driven considerations, which is the sort of companion piece to yours and Patrick's principles here. One is to deliver that product. Of course, so many great businesses start with fulfilling a customer's need, but there's also this real emphasis on being truly transparent about how you're making it, how you source your materials, how you deliver to your customers. Is it fair to say that's the other kind of twin pillar? That's the other foundational principle behind the brand?
I think we figured out we weren't completely sustainable or anything at the beginning, right? But we figured out we were still a small company, now we're growing, that we are able to change that very quickly. And we had the sources and we thought, like, if you produce that many bags, that's also your responsibility in a way. It's not like that we put it all over the place, that we're 100% sustainable. We're very proud of that, but we kind of feel also that's our responsibility and that's a taken or a given in the modern times, right? So it is another pillar of it, exactly like that we want to sit in that category of everyday fashionable bags. And literally over the last 30 years, nobody really entered that category, right? So the most sold bag in the world is the Longchamp Pliage, which for sure all of you know from the airports. It's an incredible success story. But we looked at each other, my husband and me were like, okay, but that bag is not modern anymore, right? It doesn't is it really 100% sustainable? Does it have a lot of compartments also for your laptop? When it rains, we really thought it's time for a new bag. And in the sneakers segment or something, there's so many competitors out there. And we were looking at each other, obviously coming from accessories and the collectors are our second line. We were like, why is nobody doing that? And then we really worked hard on trying to create the best totes, being super lightweight, because we kind of say it's like a Mary Poppins bag. I say that a lot with Mary Poppins bags because even customers told me that, right? And I really see our bags like this. I actually watched that movie again with my kids and it was lovely to see that. They're very light, so you can really fill your whole life from laptops to like everything you need during the day, and it still is not super heavy, right? And it still looks fashionable, and you can still have your whatever bag, Celine or any other bag, small bag, even inside to take it then to lunch, to dinner, to an aperitivo. That's a little bit the idea of the collective.
I like that. And I think it's funny you talk about, even putting your other bags in. In my family, we have this thing, and my kids actually call it the pub bag, which speaks more about where we spend most of our time. But it's basically, you put everything in there. You got the coats in there, you got the other bags, their toys, your stuff, and then you just zip it up. It's like that moment when you shut the car doors with them all finally packed in. It's like everything's in the bag, and now we're like ready to tackle the world. That's very much my kind of user experience. Well, let me ask you about your kids, because I know that you've spoken before about how, when you became parents, you and Patrick, it changes the way you look at your priorities. And maybe that spoke a little bit to that idea about sustainability and creating a brand that means more than just selling bags. It's something that's going to make a positive impact on the world. Was that a real pivot point? I think that was 2018, maybe, when your son was born. How much did that change even your sort of business thinking? It changes everything, right?
It changes absolutely. I was just about to say, I think your first child really changes everything. The way you use time, the way you think about the world, the way you want. It's very different than just being two, right? So definitely that changed a lot in our perception of the brand, what we really wanted. But it also came like all together, and it was right timing. We had enough time to source it. So we never say just because we have a pretty good tote now, that doesn't mean that we don't have to think about new compartments inside. We always try to each season make it even a little bit better.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you about that iterative approach, because once you've got a product that people plainly love and they come back for more, I guess that's a balance to strike, right? You want to keep innovating exactly as you've described, but there's the old mantras, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and so on. How do you marry up that push for innovation and giving customers things that they will want, they just don't know it yet, with making sure that you're still delivering to a very loyal base? How do you make that balance?
Absolutely. So the balance is a little bit, we even have 3 lines. So it's not just, we have a hero product in one of our lines, right? That in different sizes is really what the brand stands for. It's called the Porter line. But we have different lines. So the last line we launched 1.5 years ago is the Kaba line, which is a little bit more fashion, so to say. It appeals even more the fashion aesthetic, I'm saying. And it's recycled nylon out of bomber jacket material. So it's a complete different material aesthetic. So we're really we're working right now on the 4th line to always develop new lines, see what customers really want so they can also change in between the different lines, but always with the purpose and always with the vision that we are sitting in this everyday handbag, everyday tote. So you're not going to see us making ready to wear or shoes now or whatever. That's our category, and we want to become the go-to brand when it comes to a fashionable person that needs a bag during her everyday life to go to the gym and to travel and everything. I want everybody to then be like, oh, I have a V Collective bag. That's our goal. That's our dream.
Let me change tack, Lili. I want to ask you about retail, because obviously You've got partnerships with storied brands just round the corner from us here in London. Selfridges, of course, our friends there. Galeries Lafayette. So many great names all over the place, really. You've also I think you've got certainly your own store on Augustrasse, I believe that's right, in Berlin, absolutely. Not far from where you are now, presumably. Talk to me about the role that bricks and mortar retails play in building a brand, talking to customers, in serving up the V Collective experience to people.
We, from the beginning on, when we founded this brand, didn't have a direct-to-consumer first approach. We always said wholesale is also really, really important. So our global distributor is Tomorrow. They have brands like Canny, really in the fashion segment. And I think we were kind of new to them, but we were pretty convincing that they need us, right? So we were able to position us on a very high level, which was very important for the brand and is still very, very important. And I think then it comes to you need it all. I highly believe that you need your own online, right? And direct to consumer, which obviously is one of our biggest pillars in the segment of turnover. But then you need the right wholesale partners, right? To position yourself for people to really see the product. You just mentioned Selfridges. People go there and look at the product, maybe buy their first V Collective there and their second online. And then obviously our flagship store, that was a funny story. It was during the pandemic, and I just had my second kid, Carlotta, and it was 2 months. And it was already so crazy, but somebody offered us that store, and Patrick and me are all about opportunities, so I would never waste an opportunity. Of course, I looked at the store, I entered, and I was like, okay, that's our store. And ever since then, we have that store. And a lot of people come there to see the different sizes, to have the experience. We have an amazing store manager who really explains the whole V Collective world. I think it's also important. And obviously, big dreams now. We're moving in 2.5 months with the company to New York as founders to really make the US market huge for us, right? And the dream is very soon, or the goal is also very soon, to open our first store in New York.
Well, I was going to ask you about that ambition. Let's talk about the move stateside. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about brands or bands, anything, this idea cracking America. How do you know that the time is right? Because potentially, as you said, it's a game changer in terms of scale and access and what it can do for a brand. But was that a balance to strike, making sure the moment was right? You were happy with all of the fundamentals?
Absolutely not. I think going into America, a brand with our size would never do that step because we are still too small for that. But Patrick and me are not like that. We see America as our biggest opportunities within market, right? I mean, in the future, maybe also China, Asia, right? Where we already sell to wholesalers, but what we as founders can really make it happen. And we spent the last 3 years, always 5 months with our kids in Miami. And I saw that the opportunity that lies with that product in that country, right? So we were able to, just because of gifting, and they loved that product. And that's the beauty about V Collective. Once a person has that bag and likes it, I have no more talking to do, right? So we kind of felt there is something there, right? By living this also, that kind of life in the last 3 years, and I was very active on the American market. Then we have an amazing showroom, goods and services, that does our distribution there. We saw within one season all the big department store bought into V Collective, so from Neiman to Nordstrom, Saks, and Bloomingdale's. So we were like, okay, if we're doing this, we're doing it right now. We've been in Berlin for 10 years. It's kind of time for the next step for us as a family. My son is going to start school in September, and I'm super excited that he's going to start that in New York. It just feels so right. I'm very, very excited, but it's also a lot of craziness right now.
Yeah, I can well imagine. For some reason, I just imagine when you move, there'll just be hundreds of oversized V totes, and that's all your stuff will just be in those. Lili, listen, just finally then, where will we find you? And I guess I mean this kind of literally and metaphorically, maybe almost sort of philosophically. Where do you think we'd find you if we speak again in, 12 months' time? Presumably you'll be in New York City, but I mean, what will be your preoccupations, do you think, if we ripple dissolve to this time in 2025?
I think, yes, absolutely in New York City. I think in between New York City, Berlin and Milan, because Milan is our distributor, Berlin is our still company, and we have our team here. But basically, where you might really find me is in a store, on a sales floor, promoting the brand with an initial artist, really like very hands-on, taking care of the American market and really starting at the beginning, right? And you will find me there because that's a lot what Patrick and me are about. We're very hands-on, and I think that's something Americans also very much like, how we perceive these kind of things. So I think you might see me, let's put it like this, in a Neiman Marcus on the sales floor with my initial artist from Brooklyn, she's amazing, selling bags.
That was Lili Radu, the co-founder of V Collective. You can learn more, head on over to v-collective.com. That's it for this episode of The Entrepreneurs. We'll be back next week. Do look out for Eureka, available every Friday. The programme was produced by Laura Kramer with audio editing by Tamsin Howard. You can listen again and find out more about The Entrepreneurs at Monocle.com. That's where you can subscribe to the magazine and read more about better businesses every month. You can also follow us and catch up with the archive via your preferred podcast platform. To contact the Entrepreneurs team, email Laura. She's on lrk@monocle.com. I'm Tom Edwards. Goodbye and thanks for listening to The Entrepreneurs.